So I've done a few videos now about sinkholes in the Gulf of Mexico and cracks and other things like that, just kind of some big natural bottom. So this is a spot that's out pretty far in 200 plus feet of water, where it goes from 205 feet down to like 230 ish, and you get this double show. What I mean by that is you see where it drops off. So here's the middle of this big hole, and then the bottom where it's 225, 230. So you get kind of this undercut look to it. Um, so of course I'm always wanting to see what's down on the bottom. So I'm like, all right, I'm sending the camera down to kind of investigate this. So we're doing a lot of chumming, trying to get some yellowtails, some other snapper, but the bite was absolutely dead. There was nothing happening, which made me kind of curious, what's going on the bottom. We've been to this spot before in the fall, and it doesn't produce nearly as well as in the fall as it does in the summer. I don't know if that's just time of year where the fall fish kind of start moving in a little bit, preparing for the winter. And so it's not ideal, but when the bite's good in the summer, I mean, you get some good fish. So there were amberjacks on the spot that day. We were marking them up in the water column quite a bit, but as you can see on the bottom, there's not really a whole lot of fishy shows, a little something here. But normally you should see a whole bunch of bait and stuff all up in the middle of the hole. So amberjack up in the water column as the camera's going down. And at this point, we are sitting, I figured this out, right in the middle of the hole. So you'll see kind of this dark, shadowy look as the camera's going down. It's kind of spinning a little bit. So if you're looking all around, this is literally just a giant hole. So this is the amberjack following the camera down. So this is spinning 360 degrees. You can see that dark shadow all the way around. So what this is, back it up just slightly. If you can see, this is basically a wall. This is an old sinkhole, spring, whatever you want to call it, where the outside is at 205 foot. The middle here, where the camera is about to land, is 220 feet. So there's a fish there. And what was that? Kind of hard to see, just kind of flashes through. So the middle of this hole is 220, 230 feet deep, where this wall is, maybe 20 feet high. And it's a pretty big hole. This hole is, we moved probably 100 feet. So this is probably looking 60 feet to the side. So, maybe 120, 150 foot diameter around. And an old sinkhole, so it completely filled in. So it's all sanded in. You've got this giant ledge wall, whatever you want to call it, on the outsides where I'm sure it's undercut quite a bit, which would normally hold the fish. But as you can see, this today, when I was dropping the camera down, there's really not a whole lot going on in that hole. There's not much for bottom fish. There's occasionally in the background here, as the camera just kind of bounces around, you'll see some fish that are fairly small. There's nothing real big. I think there's a red snapper that comes into frame here in a little bit. But it's nothing like you would expect to see with this giant bottom out deep in the Gulf of Mexico. Normally there should be a lot of big beeliners. There should be some groupers. There should be some a lot of bait in general. But there wasn't really much of that happening this day. But it was very cool to see the spot, and I think that's worth knowing for the future. Hey, this is some serious structure. So especially with like a Rodan, you could kind of bounce around and fish this whole wall, the ledge wall, if the fishing was good. We didn't hang around for too long. Actually started heading in a little shallower where there did seem to be some more active fish. But these deeper springs, when you get bait on them, you're going to get a lot of the amberjack. You're going to get tuna, wahoo, a lot of pelagics up in the water column since it is such big structure. And then, the yellowtail snapper, the mangrove snapper, the red snapper. I don't really get a lot of gags on this huge structure. I think they have a lot more room to hide, so it's harder to kind of pick them out. Red grouper as well, you don't tend to get a whole lot of on the bigger structure offshore. You get them more on that smaller, flatter, hard bottom. But it wouldn't surprise me. So here's some. So as the camera comes around, you can start to see a few fish. So there's amberjack. There's some smaller stuff over there. That might be some yellowtails tucked up underneath, and right against the wall. And I think the next time go here. So there's the AJ. You can see kind of getting low. I'm gonna attempt to bring the camera a little closer to the edge. When I go there again, I don't know. Typically in the winter we don't run nearly as deep. This was kind of a let's go out deep and see what we can find type of day. So there are a few fish up against the wall, but it's nothing extraordinary. It's it was good to kind of see that this is some pretty amazing structure. I'm more of an explorer, so I like to know what I'm fishing, even if I'm not necessarily catching fish. It's always good to kind of to know it's down there. And we had come out here after we had, I think, 3 hurricanes in the Gulf over the span of a month and a half. So the water was a little stirred up, so you can see kind of these clouds of dirt. The visibility wasn't phenomenal. It was still pretty good, but out in 200 feet of water, you expect some really good visibility. This just kind of had a little hazy look to it. So there were some fish. We were chumming pretty heavy. Nothing came in the chum line, so we didn't wait around too long, just kind of hanging out there. I think the red snapper comes in the picture here in a second. But normally when you send something down like the camera and it bangs in that sand, it kind of shoots the sand up and fish come in curious and look at it. But I just don't think there was that much here that day where they're kind of coming in to see what was happening. And it looks in that direction like there's almost a gap. I think it just is a little further away. So I'd send the camera down just to kind of bang on the ground again, just to see if something wants to come look at it. So yeah, see the red snapper right there, and that was after the camera went down. It was pretty curious and wanted to see, hey, what was that loud noise? It's a little pro tip: making noise doesn't always scare fish. Sometimes it brings them in. So I bring the camera back up, try to bring it in slow. You can see the visibility is not really great. It's got a hazy look to it. Normally in this depth you can see much better than this. Doesn't seem like there's a thermocline or anything like that. I think the hurricanes kind of mixed the water up pretty good and just kind of made it a little hazy. So amberjack following it up. More amberjack up in the water column. Normally on a spot like this, you should be seeing all kinds of bait, all kinds of snapper up. Just wasn't quite happening in that day. But definitely a cool look at, definitely a cool look at one of the, deep water springs and sinkholes, whatever you want to call them, that we have out there. So just kind of wanted to show what it looks like when it's down on the bottom. So hopefully you enjoyed. We'll definitely get back to more fishy videos in the future. Feel free to subscribe, like, do all that stuff. Whatever those YouTubers always tell you to do. Thanks.